Welcome, everyone, to the fourth ever episode of the Open Throne Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Houck, and today we got a great episode talking about what happened at the trade deadline. I got my good friend and guest on today, CJ. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. It's a good day, Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah, man. But I'm here to talk about basketball today. Super Bowl's not for a couple hours. We got a bunch of trades happening. So what was your just immediate reaction to the trade deadline after it happened? Not too specific, just overall thoughts about what you thought would happen and then what ended up happening as far as players getting moved, some teams being silent, stuff like that.
I think it was much more enjoyable than we thought it would be. Everyone was saying that it wasn't going to be an eventful trade deadline, and people were worried about it. And then a lot ended up happening, and a lot of, I would say, big moves happened. So I actually enjoyed this trade deadline. I think it was fun. I don't think it was one of the best we've ever had, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing all the movement. It's one of my favorite parts of the basketball season.
Yeah. Trade deadline is always a ton of fun. Just to see who gets moved around, thinking about the new teams, new players going to different teams, different situations, how it will impact, playoff time in a few months. We had a very impactful, a lot of good teams getting traded, a lot of good players getting traded to different teams the first few days. The last day ended up being relatively light, I feel like, especially compared to the February 3rd deals and February 4th deals. But it still had some impactful players, and we'll go over most of which that mattered. A couple of deals, we won't talk about because there's a lot of players that probably don't matter in the grand scheme of things. But first, we're going to talk about the February 3rd deals. And I already talked about this in the podcast. So this is more going to be me asking you your overall thoughts about them, and then me talking about how they played in their first games, if they did play, and what if I changed their mind about anything. So first was we got that big deal that kicked off everything with Jaren Jackson Jr. going to the Utah Jazz. So what were your first reactions to the Jazz, buying as a 15-35 team and getting somebody like Jaren Jackson Jr. away from the Grizzlies?
My first reaction was that it was rushed. I feel like on the Jazz part, I feel like it rushed that rebuilding team. But for the Grizzlies, I really like the trade. I think they got a good return back. I think there's a really good chance that Walter Clayton becomes something. And they didn't really give up that much else, other than the first round picks, of course. So I think it's helping to start their rebuild. And I think the Jaren Jackson Jr. pickup, I like it for the Jazz. I just don't know if how soon I can see them as contending with, Ace Bailey still developing. I'm a big fan of Bryce Sensabaugh. I think he's still developing. Um, but I think with the Keontae George jump this season, they were just like, hey, we might as well start trying to win now and start trying to build a winning culture. And I think the duo with him and Lauri Markkanen, I think Jaren Jackson and Lauri Markkanen will be like a really big front. And now that I know that they're trying to keep Walker Kessler, I just think they can be a playoff team next year.
Yeah, I think so too. I wasn't sure how in such a loaded West how I thought they were going to do, but I watched them play. It was either last night or the night before. I think it was last night, and they almost beat the Orlando Magic at the Orlando Magic's place. Now, granted, the Magic are an up and down team. They're kind of trying to figure out their own situation. I'm not sure if that coach is going to stay around. They got interesting going on over there down in Florida. But they were up, I think it was 17 points with a minute left in the third quarter. And they took out Lauri and Jaren Jackson Jr. They didn't play a minute in the fourth quarter, and they ended up losing by 3. I mean, just absolutely blatant tanking job by Utah. But they look like they could be good. I mean, I actually think if they stay healthy, which is a big thing. Jaren's had problems. Walker Kessler's had problems. Lauri Markkanen has been fairly healthy, but he's still a 7-footer. You can never be too sure about an agile 7-footer like Lauri.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance that they could get as high as a 5th or 6th seed in the West next year. But I could definitely see it not working out and them having, just a rough season. Their pick going to the Grizzlies, I forget, is that lottery protected? Do you remember, was there protections on that pick or was it
I
unprotected?
think they were unprotected.
The 27 Jazz pick?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
I think both those picks were unprotected. I could be wrong though.
I remember they were giving away the 27 Jazz pick because they wanted to win now. I mean, Danny Ainge had actually said, we're tired of losing. We're ready for it. We're ready to win over here. And that sounds like Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
He's kind of an impatient guy. He's a great general manager. Proved that in Boston, proving that right now by the amount of draft capital he's getting. So I think they could be good. I think it's interesting. I really want to stress that 2031 Suns pick. I think people aren't talking about that enough. I really think that is kind of the saving grace for the Grizzlies. But yeah, I like the trade more for both sides than I thought I was going to. And watching the game last night, I think the Jazz could really do something, which I wasn't really expecting going into the trade deadline. The next trade that we had on the 3rd was Vucevic going to the Celtics. And obviously the Celtics had needed a big for a while. They signed Chris Boucher. They've had Tillman for a couple years. They have Nehemiah Skates out of Sacramento, who I liked a lot when he was in Sacramento. And he's been a bright spot this season, getting higher usage and has been performing pretty well. But obviously people are worried, especially with Tatum maybe not coming back in the playoffs, that he's not the answer, for center full time. Picked up a veteran like Vucevic, who was a two-time All-Star, I believe, in Orlando. He's been playing pretty well in Chicago, relatively speaking, at least offensively. Can pass, get offensive boards, stretch the floor a little bit. He's hit some clutch threes in the last couple of years, so that's something that they need down in Boston. What was your immediate reaction to Vucevic going over there?
I thought it was a good trade. I did feel a little bad for Neemias Keita. I'm a big fan of his game, and I was worried that Vucevic might steal his starting spot. I don't know if he's gonna do that yet, but we know he didn't start in the last game that they played, but I do think it's a good pickup for the Celtics. I think that he very much matches what I would consider like a Mazzulla Ball type of player. He's a center that can spread the floor. He's a good playmaker, which everyone on that Celtics team seems to always just become a good playmaker. So the fact that he's already a good one, it works out really well. I think he should have good chemistry with the team. I feel like one thing, if I can say anything about Vucevic, is that it seems like he has chemistry with most of the players he plays with, even when it's a young team like the Bulls. He plays off of them really well. So I feel like this is a good move for the Celtics, especially since they're way better than we thought they were this year. So I don't see anything wrong with the trade.
I think that makes sense. I never really considered him to be a Missoula kind of player. At least, when he was in Chicago. It does make sense about the playmaking. He's a fairly smart player. A lot of those European bigs are. They play a smart brand of basketball. He's a great playmaker, like you said, and it should improve or at least, be showcased pretty well when he's in Boston. He had 6 offensive boards last night. Keita's been really good at getting offensive boards, but, 6 is a pretty big number. So shout out to him for that. That's going to help them out a lot over there in Boston. They need the size. My only concern is the defense. That's always been a concern with him. The older he's gotten, the worse he's gotten in Chicago. It's not the same amount of rim protection as he had in Orlando, maybe a decade ago. And it looked really bad in his first game back, the first half, anyways. I watched it, and after the first few times I actually started writing it down, he got beat in isolation 8 separate times in that first half against the Miami Heat. And obviously, they run a lot of ISO ball this year. It's a different offense, but he got beat 5 times by Bam Adebayo, either, threes, couple step back mid ranges, getting beat, drives. He got beat, twice drives by Houck Jr. as well. And then I think Andrew Wiggins got him on a pump fake at a corner three. It ended up being a free layup down there too. That was all in the first half as well. They ended up winning the game, played a lot better defensively in the second half, and maybe that's a sign of things to come for the Celtics. Obviously, they would hope that, but I just worry come playoff time that he may be a defensive liability when they scheme around attacking the paint, and somebody like Vucevic in his old age holding down the paint or maybe bringing him out to the perimeter and having slow lateral quickness. I think it may be an issue. They're going to need to go to Keita a decent bit, but it does bring versatility to have both those options in the playoffs, which they didn't have going into this. So I think it's a pretty good trade for them, but I have defensive concerns come playoff time.
I get that. And I would also like to say for the Bulls, I'm very happy they were able to trade Vucevic. I was worried they were going to go through his entire contract and keep him because I really wanted them to at least get something. And while they already have a ton of guards, I think they'll at least be able to trade Anthony Simons for something. So I'm very happy that they were finally able to get off that Vucevic contract because they've had it for a long time and no one knew if they were willing to actually trade him.
Yeah, the Chicago's done a lot of they've done a lot this trade deadline, which is, that's nice because they had so many expiring contracts. I was one, I came on the podcast too, and said I thought that they may not be able to trade those or may not choose not to trade those contracts. And that was going to be a big concern of mine. They did not do that. They traded all of those expiring deals except for the Zach Collins, I think it was. They still have him on a year deal. But they got a lot of guards. They got some questionable pieces. They waited too long. We'll talk about the Bulls later. They're an interesting case.
Mhm.
But that makes sense. And I'm excited to see Anthony Simons on the Bulls. I'm not sure what's going to happen with him. You said they might trade him. He's got expiring contract, so he need to be signed and trade somewhere else
Yeah,
as
sign and
well.
trade.
But maybe he'll show off a lot of talent and get a lot of good looks and put up some high numbers and get traded to somebody for some assets again following this season. That would be nice for Chicago. And then later that night, the big trade that we got was James Harden and Darius Garland's getting swapped. So we had known that was going to happen about 24 hours before. I think it was Shams or Mark Stein, one of them came out and said, this is going to happen. They're not going to pay Harden. He wants out. He has a player option. I actually didn't know this. He had a player option, but only 13 million of the 38-ish million, whatever the player option was guaranteed. And he felt that the
Mhm.
Clippers would not give him more than that of the guaranteed money. So he said, I want to go somewhere else. Cleveland's had issues with Garland in the past as far as health the last couple of years, and especially come playoff time. I'm not sure if he leads to more than the second round ceiling that we've seen with him. So, what was your immediate thoughts, not from the trade, but just when you heard the news about it and the trade coming a day later?
It was a big surprise. I think this is one of the bigger surprises. But the moment I knew Harden was being traded, I thought about it as a possibility. But I honestly think it was a great trade for the Cavs. I think James Harden is, I think, the best pick and roll guard. I want to say he's one of the best pick and roll guards in the league. And I'd say Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are some of the best pick and roll bigs in the league. And I think that the chemistry should be there. I think his defense is always a question with, but I think so was Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So I'd say that they didn't really change too much on that front, and that you would just expect they have a great coach, Kenny Atkinson, sorry, and I think that it should work well. And when I first heard about the trade, I thought the return for the Clippers wasn't too great because I really didn't want the Thunder to get their pick, and I thought that they would be losing with Garland, but as we'll speak about in the future, I think that the Clippers made a after trading Zubac, I think they're in a better position.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. We'll talk about that a little bit later because I think there's some upside to that and some not as well. I think this the more I think about this as well, I think this also made sense for both sides. I don't love the Cavaliers getting 10 years older, in that position and making a win now move. But I started thinking about it a little more when also taking into account the Schroeder and Keon Ellis trade. It kind of made sense they need to get off of DeAndre Hunter because of Jalen Tyson and how good he's been recently. That he looks like he could be that three that they've been trying to get, with trading for DeAndre Hunter and having Isaac Okoro drafted so high before that. They've been trying to find a pretty consistent small forward to put there, and it seems like Jalen Tyson might be that, and I'm really happy for him. So they need to get bench depth. They need to get a win now guy if they wanted to take advantage of this East. And that's something I'll talk about later. I think more teams should have took advantage of the East being like this year. That's one of my biggest pet peeves was that some teams did not go all in or didn't go more all in. So the Cavaliers are the team that did that the most, going for those two bench guards that are going to bring defense and offense in Schroeder and Keon Ellis from the Kings. And then Harden is a great pick and roll guy. Like I said, he may be one of the greatest pick and roll guards ever, at least in the modern day. I would imagine he's probably, top three, top five without thinking too hard. And the first bucket that he played in with the Cavs last night was against the Kings. Ironically enough, they played the Clippers one game and then the Cavs the next game. That was pretty funny to find out. But it was a basket where Jared Allen had rolled from the high post down to the basket. Give it to him, easy layup. Evan Mobley didn't even play. Now, granted, they only won by 6, and the Kings didn't have Sabonis or Levine, so it was not a great showing. But it showed signs to come with, like you said, Atkinson being coaching a really smart offensive minded coach. I think there's a lot he can do with that for playoff time. Mobley's going to bring it on the defensive end a ton. I'm not sure he might get unlocked a little more offensively, like everybody's hoping that he would have this year. That's been one of the biggest criticisms, that he's still a top five-ish defender in the league, and that's great. But if he's not going to take a next step offensively, it's questions with the ceiling of the team, which is what we've been talking about already with Mitchell, with Allen, with the coach they had before. It's been problems there about second round or higher. So I think that's really interesting. Everybody's concerned, me included, about Harden in the playoffs. I mean, clearly this has been a problem for however many years. If you think it's overblown, there's a lot of data there that shows that this has been a problem. And it will be a problem potentially as well. It'll be a chance for it to be a problem because obviously the Cavs are going to be in that situation again for the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's a really interesting move, and I think it was smart for the Cavs to do this, looking back at it a couple of days later.
I agree. And Donovan Mitchell is a playoff riser. So if James Harden, let's say he falls off a little, but Donovan Mitchell might go in there and gives you
That's
40.
right.
So
Makes up for it a little bit. That makes I like the way you think. So that was all that we had for February 3rd. That was a huge day. Like I said, that was 2 days before the deadline. Was not expecting that to be big. And once that day had happened, I got really excited. We had a podcast talking about what had happened that day. I was really expecting big things for us at the deadline. And February 4th kind of lived into that as well the following day. The first trade in the morning, or the biggest trade in the morning, was Anthony Davis going to the Wizards. That had really thrown me off that the Wizards made another win now move. This team is now really interesting. I cannot wait to talk about it with Austin, the Wizards fan. But what were your immediate thoughts, Anthony Davis, when he got traded around noon on the 4th?
this is easily the biggest surprise of the trade deadline. I could not believe it. I didn't expect that the Wizards were buying in. I wouldn't say I'm not a huge fan of the trade, but as I've had talks with people, I think for the Wizards, just to be a Wizards fan and to have a lot of hope that you'll be a playoff team next year, I think the trade was probably worth it just for some morale reasons for the organization. I think they had a lot of good young pieces. It's going to be interesting for me to see how well he plays with Sar, Anthony Davis as a player. And then you're also adding in Trey Young. So you got to really hope the coach knows what he's doing, and I'm can't wait to see what the offense looks like. We already know that Anthony Davis prefers to play the four anyway, so I guess this is beneficial for him. He gets to stay at the four. Um, I think it's a good trade for the Mavericks. I'm happy they're just kinda and it's worked because Cooper Flag has played much better. Well, not that he was playing bad or anything, but he's played much better since, Anthony Davis is no longer on the team. He's got, like, the confidence this is his team, dropping 40 plus points on some nights. So, I think for the Mavericks, I like the trade. For the Wizards, I'd like to see what happens, but I think I'm on the bandwagon for how good this team will look. They'll probably be one of the more fun teams to watch next year.
I'm glad you feel that way because I had talked to you a few times about your stance on Anthony Davis and how he looks. So I'm surprised to hear you say that. I'm happy for it. I have concerns, to be honest with you, though, man. I think it's again for the sake of jersey sales and having hope in Washington with Trey Young and with Anthony Davis and their great pieces that they have in George and Sar. I think it's really and it could be a lot of fun. I I I have concerns with the health of Trey Young and Anthony Davis a lot, and I'm less worried about stunning the growth as I was before. I think George and Trey Young may still not be able to share the ball that well, like we saw. Not that this is exact, comparison, the same situation, but DeJounte Murray going to Atlanta didn't work out very well. It's not the same, but I think
Mhm.
there are similarities there that it could get in the way. It could show a sign of stunning the growth of somebody like Keyshawn George. So I'm worried about that a little bit, at least, just in the back of my mind. It may not be that big a deal. I'm really worried about Alex Sard and Anthony Davis in the backcourt. Neither of those guys want to play the five. I think I saw somewhere that Alex Sard is the lightest center in the league. He's like
He is.
205 pounds. And Anthony Davis is going to weigh 50 pounds more than him, be however many 12, 13 years older, and probably push him to the five for some reason because Anthony Davis doesn't want to play the four so bad because he's going to get injured. It's just kind of a goofy situation having two 4.5s. I'm not sure what's going to happen. And I hadn't thought about like the coach trying to maintain and control Trey Young and Anthony Davis with the roster they have around there. That is going to be a lot of fun to watch and look at and see what they try and do. So I'm more intrigued, especially hear what you got to say about it. I'm more intrigued for what it's going to look like. I think there is a ceiling, especially if the East isn't a ton better, which I think it will be decent better next year, but maybe not up to the par of what the West has been the last few years. They could maybe make a second round, and that would be amazing for Washington. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not sure how long it's been, but I know it's been a while since they've made the playoffs. Won, more than they went over 500. It's a rough history last few years for that Washington franchise. So it's gonna be really fun. It's good to see hope over there, and I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch next year.
And I will want to just add on, as I know I did talk to you about Anthony Davis and how I think specifically on this Wizards team, he can have less of a role, which is what I prefer, since I don't see him as like the take over the game player like a lot of other people do. That I'm really big on a Trey Johnson jump. I'm really big on Keyshawn George this year. I have him in fantasy, so I've happened to watch a lot of the Wizards games where he's played, and I think he is a real NBA player, maybe future All Star. I don't want to jump too far, but I
It's not
think
out of the realm of
I
possibility.
think
Yeah.
it's in the realm of possibility, and the fact that they just have so many nice pieces, I think it'll be more of a team game than it will be than a Trey Young, Anthony Davis team, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think it'd be a lot of fun no matter what. Like I'm actually really excited to see what they do. They may need to, I don't know who the coach is over there off the top of my head, and I'm not sure how good of a coach he is, but it may speed up the timeline enough to where they expect winning. I'm not sure. If they hadn't seen winning over there in a long time. So it'll just be fun to see how the whole experiment goes if they stay healthy, how everything plays out. People developing, like you said, people jumping like a Trey Johnson or a Keyshawn George, getting maybe an all-star in the next couple years. We'll see. The next thing, I know you're really excited to talk about this. Next trade that I got down here is McCain going to the Thunder. So that was pretty unexpected for me to see that. I didn't think they were ready to give up on him so fast. And I don't like seeing the Thunder see any winning plays, unfortunately. As not anti-Thunder. I know that sounds very anti-Thunder. Just for the sake of the rest of the league, they look really good already without Jared McCain going over there. So, what were your immediate thoughts?
My immediate thought was, I cannot believe the 76ers did this. I know that he had been struggling this year and with his offensive creation, and I get that, but he was also still shooting 38% from three. I think he was still somebody who could play off of VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey and Embiid. I thought that he was in and after listening to the interviews of some of the players talking about it, he was a huge locker room presence. Like everyone in the locker room loved him. So it wasn't even good for 76ers morale. And I think I just don't understand why Daryl Morey did that. He said he was selling high on Jared McCain. That's what he said in his interview. So I'm not sure what he was thinking, but I know he's going to be great for the Thunder, a team that struggles with creation outside of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and AJ Mitchell, and people who just go and get their own shot, create a difficult shot. I think Jared McCain is that. In the game they just played against the Rockets, I had the pleasure of watching that, and the Thunder are the Thunder fans love him already. Every time he went in, they were cheering. He had some timely shots. He had some bad turnovers, but it's what you expect with a new team. I'm expecting he has growth, and I'm expecting that Thunder wouldn't have traded for him if they didn't believe he could be the player that he was when he was a rookie and he had that amazing stretch of games. I don't think they would have Sam Presti would have traded for him. I trust Sam Presti that he knows players and he knows people who love basketball. And I think Jerry McCain loves basketball, and I think it's a great pickup. I expect him to be in the rotation, even though they already have a stacked roster. I really like it. I think they won the trade deadline for me as a team that was already looked at as a championship favorite, and then they just added another creator.
Okay, okay. We'll get to the winners later. You are kind of convinced me of it a little bit, though. Sam Presti is such a smart guy. I mean, this is one of the better GMs we've had in recent years, maybe even the best in recent history. But yeah, I was surprised to see this as well. I was lower on McCain than a lot of people were, I believe, out of Duke. Some of that is personal bias. Not a big Duke guy. But obviously he was really good for the 2025 game stretch he had because they thought he was gonna be a high floor player too, and he showed signs of a high ceiling in those 25 game rookie of the year kind of span that he had in his first year. So I think he'll be closer to what he is now, but I still think that's a great player, and I think it's fantastic to add to the Thunder come playoffs. Come playoffs next 5 or 6 years, he should be getting a little bit better. It's a great system he's going to. There's a lot of reasons to like this for the Thunder. I'm surprised Daryl Morey did it too. I think again, it makes sense to buy low on him. I just don't like that he went to the Thunder. Like he could have gone anywhere else but OKC. But I think that's just me. So yeah, I'm happy with the move as well. We'll talk about the Thunder a little bit later though when it comes to winners. I know you're really high on him. Next, we got Kobe White to the Hornets. I'm a little bit polarized about this, but my immediate reaction was I was really happy for the Hornets. I was concerned because they had won so many games going into the deadline that they were going to give up future picks and assume that this is a winning roster. And not that it is a winning roster. They've won, I think, 9 in a row. They haven't lost in probably a month now almost. But you got to look back at the history. They haven't drafted outside the lottery. I think it's probably like 9 of the last 10 years they've been lottery picks, right? So I was scared that they were going to do something stupid and get rid of first round draft capital that you don't know how good it will be. We've battled, Hornets have battled injuries the last few years. They didn't do that. I think they only gave up seconds to get Kobe White and Mike Conley, or I guess they got Mike Conley. I don't remember. It was just they got Kobe White was the main thing. He's kind of an upgraded Colin Sexton, is what everybody's saying. I think he has a little bit higher usage, and I'm a little bit worried about that as far as coming into the team and taking usage away from players like Khan, like LaMelo, like Brandon Miller. Got a couple other guards over there off the bench that are pretty solid as well, like a Trey Mann. Not that that's going to be terrible, but just something like that. Like it may be problems in the short term, but I believe that it'll be better for the team in the long run. And I'm really excited to see what he looks like because I like Kobe White. Going back to Carolina should be great for morale. I'm really happy over here. North Carolina that he's back around. So a lot of good from this trade, but I have a couple concerns. What are your thoughts?
As a Carolina person who goes to a lot of Hornets games, I'm happy I'm going to get to see Kobe White play. I am a big believer in Colin Sexton when they originally got the trade. My best friend's a Hornets fan. I was saying Colin Sexton is going to be great for the Hornets, and he truly has been. He's like the calm because Lamelo plays this amazing creative basketball, and Brandon Miller is this athletic phenomenon who can make difficult shots, and Colin Sexton kind of brings like this normal just really good basketball player. Like he doesn't play anything extremely crazy, but he's just a good basketball player, and he has been. And he was my favorite player on this team to watch specifically for me. And so I was kind of sad to hear that he's gone now, but I don't see any reason why Kobe White could not be that same player. Um, I'm not too worried about the usage since I feel like they do a lot. Charles Lee does a lot of staggered minutes with Colin Sexton. I think he can do the same with Kobe White. And I feel that I feel I'm big on the trade. I think I'm a big Kobe White fan. I think he's an amazing scorer. Off the top of my head, he seems like one of the better six men in the league. Um, so I'm really hoping it works out. Even I'm really hoping because I really want to see the Hornets in the playoffs. I know Charlotte fans deserve it, and I really don't think it'll mess with this win streak. I don't. Well, they might get losses. I'm not gonna say they're gonna go undefeated for the rest of the year, but I really hope they continue to move on up in the standings.
Yeah, I heard that he's not gonna be able to play until after the trade deadline, or excuse me, after the All-Star break, which we can talk about a little bit too. He got the it went I don't know if the word was redacted or something, but they had lost a second round pick. The Chicago Bulls did. It went from 3 second rounders to 2 second rounders because of the potential trade issue that Kobe White had had. So I think that his first game back, they're going to lose if they haven't lost already. I don't know who it's going to be against. You know, it may even be against a really crappy team, or maybe against the Thunder they probably weren't going to be in the first place. But
Mhm.
I'm worried that's gonna happen. But again, I think as far as the long term and even like play in playoffs this year, they'll probably be better with them. So I'm really happy with the move. Next thing we got, the last one on the fourth was really late at night. It was Kristaps Porzingis headed to the Warriors, and this was a polarizing trade too. What did you think about it when it happened?
I think that they needed to make a move, kind of for Curry's sake. And I wish they would have traded Jonathan Kaminga so long ago. I don't, we don't really have to get into it, but I feel like they've kind of set themselves up for failure almost as an organization with how they've treated Jonathan Kaminga. And I would have really liked to see him get traded when his value was a little higher. But, Porzingis, when he plays, is a great player. I think that the Warriors have struggled to have a really good center for a very long time. I actually can't name a really good center that they've had. So I think this is a good pickup for them. I think he'll play well with Curry, and I hope to see them have a little more success with him. I hope he stays healthy. That's always something I'll never wish injury on a player. So as long as he can stay healthy, I don't think this makes them a contender truly, but I think it's something to say, hey Curry, we're at least trying to make changes.
Yeah, he's got, is it an illness or just some sort of medicine? Just I'm not sure how to describe it, but he has been
I
he has
don't
been
know the
really going
specifics
through it.
on him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been tough, but I really, like you said, I hope he's been healthy. I hope he's gonna be healthy for the Warriors. I think them having KP, if he is healthy, will be really good for him. Like you said, they've been lacking a center for so long. I mean, Quentin Post played like 25 minutes a month ago. It's unbelievable. He should not be getting that kind of run time.
No.
So I think it's good for him. It definitely does make him contender, like you're talking about. I think it's more so what they look like with Jimmy next year, but I'm not really high on that either. I mean, this is a 38, however old Jimmy's going to, not that old, probably like 35-ish next year when he returns, whose game typically focused on athleticism coming back from an ACL tear.
Mhm.
I'm not. We'll see how that plays out, but I'm not, super optimistic about that. So I think it's interesting that they did it. I'm glad they finally got rid of Kaminga. We'll talk about it for a little bit. Kaminga could have been traded to the Raptors for Pascal Siakam a couple years ago, and Kaminga could have been traded for, I think it was Lauri Markkinen, or maybe it was somebody else, something along those lines as well. Another All-Star caliber player years ago, and it would have been a much better package than what this was. So I
I also
management
think
over
there
there
was a
did not
Sabonis
do
trade
very
on the
good.
market too at one point.
What's that?
I also think there was a Sabonis trade on the market at one point.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of instead of Laurie. But yeah, so that's just they wasted that asset so bad. The asset management of that was so poor. Just the two timeline thing was actually one of my biggest pet peeves watching it. Was that the owner before the guy who's there now was saying that we won't trade him because he's a valuable asset, while he was still riding the bench with Steve Kerr because Steve Kerr didn't think he was a valuable asset. You can't have two different sides to that. You can't have two different opinions, especially for as long as they did. I mean, it was years like that. He was in the
Yes.
same draft class as Scotty Barnes. That was 5 years ago. So it's tough. Oh, and for the Hawks, what were your thoughts about Buddy Hield and Kuminga going back to Atlanta?
Oh, I do like it for the Hawks. I think they need another shooter. Like I've said, Luke Kennard, when they had him, I'm happy he's not really there anymore because he wasn't really that shooter. He shot well, don't get it twisted, but I feel like he doesn't take a lot of shots. I think we talked about this where I was like, he's like that type of player who really only takes shots that they think they can make. So he's not really as much of a threat as people see him as, but I think Buddy is much more willing to he'll shoot it even if he's shooting 1 for 5, 1 for 8, he'll shoot that ball. So I think it's a good pickup for them. And I can't wait to see how Jonathan Kaminga plays with this team. I'm happy he's outside of the Warriors system now just because I don't think the Warriors system was something that he could really play well in, and that's obviously why Steve Kerr didn't play him much. So I can't wait to see how he fits in the rotation. I'm not sure how they're planning on using him yet, but I definitely think that right now he can impact them better than like Richese, who I feel like has I haven't been as big on him this year as I was in his rookie year.
Yeah, he's been up and down. I mean, he's in such a weird situation being like the most slept on number 1 pick that I can remember. Like that Sarr has been really good for Washington, although he's been in Washington, he's not taking like a huge leap. So it's not like, oh, they missed. They should have got
Mhm.
Sarr. Like that's not a consensus opinion between NBA fans. I'm sure a lot of non-casuals would say that, but not everybody knows Alex Sarr. Not everybody knows Reese Shea. That draft was just relatively poor compared to the rest of them. So he's in an interesting spot. I kind of thought they might trade him, like also sell high, but I don't know what Reese Shea's value is out there. Like
Yeah,
it's a first overall pick from a year and a half ago, but at the same time, it's still Zachary Reese Shea. No offense to the guy, it's an interesting situation over there in Atlanta. I do think Buddy Hield will be really good for them. Some shooting, they need that. Obviously, you said they had Kennard, and he was a shooter. He's shooting crazy percentages, but didn't take a lot of shots. Looked to pass more. Did not like look to take any shots that wasn't perfect. I'm not sure how he's going to do in Los Angeles. It's going to be interesting to see that as well. I don't know that he's going to provide what they're going to want, and they're going to complain about it a lot more. Now that
they
I'm thinking
will.
about it out loud, the Lakers fans are going to say, "Oh my gosh, we got a shooter for Gabe Vincent who wasn't a great shooter for them." He plays less defense and isn't going to take shots when they're going to be yelling at him to take shots. I mean, that's going to be funny. The more I think about that, the more I'm excited to just see the ripple effect of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be good for the Hawks. Glad to see Kuminga out of that situation. I don't know if he's going to do much in Atlanta. They kind of have a logjam over there at that 2, 3 wing position with Dyson Daniels and Reese Shea being a 3, and that's just Jalen Johnson's a 3-4. Like they got a lot of wing forwards. Nikhil Alexander Walker kind of plays that too. I'm not sure how much run he's going to get. I don't know if he's going to. Yeah, it's just going to be tough. But I'm glad he's out of there, and I hope the best for Kuminga because as the Warriors have done him so dirty in the last few years.
Agreed.
So that's all we had for the 4th. And then the next trade deadline day, it was actually relatively quiet on the 5th between, until 3 p.m. when the trade deadline ended. But we still had some pretty big deals. Some contending teams got better pieces. The 3 that we're going to talk about here, the first one is the Timberwolves finally getting a point guard, getting sent Ayo Dosunmu from the Bulls, which I am really happy the Timberwolves got a point guard, and I like Ayo a decent bit. He may not solve all the problems Timberwolves fans are hoping he will, or they might even need him to, essentially, because they need a point guard over their bad. But Io's really good. He's been consistent. He's been shooting pretty well for Chicago ever since he got drafted over there. He's a really good piece. And I said I was worried Timberwolves wouldn't get a point guard at all. I put that out in the last podcast too, was that I thought they were going to mess around and either get Giannis or not get Giannis, and they wouldn't get a point guard. And they would still need that no matter what they traded for. And that was gonna, was gonna be awful watching the playoff time when they, didn't have anybody, didn't have Mike Conley. They got Io. So what were your thoughts about Io going to the Timberwolves?
I love the pickup. I think I was also another person who was really worried that they were gonna try and do this buy for Giannis, saying they still have no point guard, and it just wasn't gonna be a good fit. I wasn't even for them trading Mike Conley when we originally talked about getting somebody like Giannis because I felt like they really need a point guard, and I think Io was a great pick. I think they got him for relatively cheap. Um, I think that I thought that they might get Kobe White originally. That was who I wanted them to get, but I think he kind of works better to keep the ball. He's better off ball than Kobe White, I feel like. So he's better to keep the ball into Randall and Edwards' hands. I think he'll probably have a lot of good chemistry. He defends, I think, better than Kobe White does. So that's
Yes.
another good thing that they got. I think him and Dante will be able to switch depending on who's hotter, who's better that night. because sometimes when Dante's not hitting, then it seems like they're kind of pigeonholed. Now they have that variation, and I really do think that as a team that's been in the conference finals for the last 2 years, I wanted them to make moves around the edges, and this is definitely a move around the edge. So I'm very much looking forward to see how he fits with this team because I really do think that was their weakness. It was their guard play, and now they got it.
Definitely. So, immediate reaction. Do you think that they are, because you said they have been to the conference finals 2 years, at least 2 of the last 3 years, maybe even back to back years. They have had a lot of postseason success, but have not made it to the next level yet. And Ant's still very young. They still got young pieces over there, relatively speaking. Julius Randle is probably about 30. Gobert's got a couple more years in him, still playing the good defensive paint presence that he has been his entire career. Do you think with Io that they are closer to that next step and could take a jump to the finals, beating somebody like the Thunder if the Thunder get hurt, or the Rockets or the Nuggets if they get injuries, stuff like that? Do you think there's a chance that they can do that now?
Yeah, I think that this is a team that could win a championship. Now, I'm not saying they will. Like if they go against a healthy Thunder, I cannot see them beating them. I just can't. But I think they could take them to 6, maybe. I think that they can still beat the Nuggets, who people look at as like the second best team in the West this year. I think they could beat the Rockets. I think it's possible that they make it to the conference finals again, especially after this change, because Mike Conley is a lot older. And I just trust this team in the playoffs. From what I've seen, they out hustle, they out heart other teams in the playoffs, and sometimes that's all you need.
It's funny because they have Rudy Gobert on this team, and that was a big thing was that nobody could trust Rudy Gobert in the playoffs for many years when he was in Utah. So it's funny now. I agree with you too. I'm not trying to call you out here. It's funny that you say that now I trust this team. They've shown they can do this with somebody like a Rudy Gobert, who we thought was going to be a weakness when it comes time to drawing up plays going against him, bringing him out to the perimeter, that sort of thing. So do you think they're gonna get Mike Conley as well, right? And that's hilarious
Yeah.
by its they're gonna go re-pick up Mike Conley again, even though they traded him because somebody was traded at who was traded to another team after going
Mhm.
to Chicago. They're allowed to pick him back up again. Do you think he's gonna go back over there, and how do you think that's gonna look?
Yeah, he definitely will. We saw Shams made a post and, he said that there's a possibility of it. Well, he said it was gonna happen, but, he also said that stuff about the honest trade, so maybe we can't trust him, but he said, 2 days ago that, he was planning on re-signing with the Timberwolves, so I expect to see that happen in the next couple of days. And which I think works great because I have already talked about how much I love Mike Conley with the Timberwolves and his relationship with Ant and Gobert. And I feel like the team looks at him like they're veteran. They're the ones they play for him. Ant has talked about how much he values winning a ring so that Mike Conley can have one. So that's one of the things I love the fact that they're able to keep him.
Yeah, I definitely see that. He's a great team culture guy, even if he's shooting like horrendously from the field,
Mhm.
32% from the field, 30% from three, by the way. But he is definitely a team culture guy. They still need a point guard, even though he's only playing 18 minutes. He may, play a little bit less, but he'll still come in. He'll probably get run in the playoffs as well, so that'll be good
Yeah.
for him. Just having it again, the same veteran presence that we've been talking about with him for the last couple years. It should be good. It should be fun to see a Timberwolves team, and I am curious about the ceiling of this team with an Io and maybe a different role for Conley as well. So the next trade we have here, I wasn't sure if I wanted to put this in because I'm not sure if this is a big enough trade. I think it dwells in comparison to the rest that we're going to talk about. But for my own personal reasons, I wanted to include it. Is Jose Alvarado going to the New York Knicks? I don't know how much he's going to play. They got a lot of guards over there off the bench with Jordan Clarkson and Miles McBride still playing, and a couple other guys like Kolek is on that team, right? Isn't
Mhm.
Kolek in the Knicks as well? So
Yeah.
it's kind of crowded in that bench depth backcourt, but I could see him playing minutes in the playoffs. I really want to see Jose Alvarado off the bench in the playoffs. I know they played I think he played in that Thunder series a couple years ago, but that wasn't much of a series. I mean, Zion didn't play. Ingram was shooting like 35% from the field because they were locking him up so bad. I think it'll be interesting seeing Jose in the playoffs. That's the only reason I included this was just hoping that he can play in the playoffs and bring a defensive presence that they need really badly off the bench on the perimeter.
Yep, it definitely seems like a versatility move to me. Um, for when a playoff matchup might come and they have to go against a really good point guard. Jalen Brunson's not going to be the type to guard up on a really good guard. So it's really good that they were able to get someone like Jose Alvarado, who, while he's not a lockdown like Lou Dort or something, he's really someone who can get under your skin. He's a really irritating player to have to play against. He does that scary little steal thing where he hides, he's very small. Like he just there's stuff he could bring to this team that would be like rotational. I don't know if he'll be like an actual rotational player with his team, but depending on certain matchups they get in the playoffs, since they really consider themselves like the kings of the East, I feel like I don't think they look at the Pistons like they're gonna beat us in the playoffs. So they definitely got this Jose Alvarado pick to just get some more defensive versatility at the guard position.
Yeah, I was thinking about the guards in the East when you were talking about it. I don't know that they would like you thinking Cade. I'm not sure you'd put Jose Alvarado on Cade. I don't know
No,
if that would go
never.
that well. They got well, I think the one matchup that would go pretty well is putting him on Donovan Mitchell to go against the Cavs. That I would
Mhm.
be excited to see. I think that's a pretty good way to kind of force Harden to get more shots up.
Yeah,
Force
definitely.
Harden to show off his playoff side, at least what he's shown so far, kind of get him out of the game, maybe stress him out and make him force up shots that he wouldn't taking if Jose wasn't on the team. So I think that's the matchup he would use him. But like I wouldn't put him on Jalen Brown or anybody on the Celtics either besides Pritchard. And I'm not really worried about Pritchard being the reason that they lose in that series to the Celtics.
Good point.
So I think that's what I'll be looking for. And again, it's just the hope that he would get minutes and come in and kind of swing momentum of a game by doing the Jose Alvarado plays that we've known him to start doing, known him to be doing over in New Orleans. And the last thing that we saw on the fit that was really interesting is Ivica Zubac going to the Pacers. This really came out of left field for me. I had drawn up a trade where I wanted Zubac to go to the Celtics because I thought they needed a center and they don't need a 3-point shooting center over there. They've shown they can still win with Keita over there.
Mhm.
So I thought Zubac kind of buying relatively low. It's interesting because it was buying high a ton last year, but he's put up similar numbers from last season, but he's looked worse doing it. And, especially at the beginning of the year, they were losing when he was doing it too. So I think it's more like the Celtics would be buying low on him compared to where he was last year and what he's shown because he's still very young. I think he's probably around 26, if I had to guess, maybe 27. Goes to the Pacers instead, who are struggling this year. They're going to have a top pick, presumably. And they have Jay Huff at center, who I like a lot. And I actually wanted him to go to my Raptors. I think that would be a lot of fun. That didn't happen. I'm not going to talk about the Raptors right now. So I think it's a good move for them. I'm excited to see Zubac on the Pacers. I think next year with Hallie, that could be a lot of fun. Just, setting screens constantly and rolling. I think that would be a lot of fun. Good for Rick Carlisle to have a body like that and to be able to draw plays around, especially come playoff time. That could be fun. Just really out of nowhere. Why do you like this for the Clippers, compared to what you thought before with the other trade the other day?
Yeah, so like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the Garland trade until I kind of saw where they were going with this trade, which is that they're okay with not necessarily being in the playoffs this year, but they definitely would still like the chance to get a pick in this draft, and they definitely still want to retool and start the rebuild. So I think the pickup of Benedict Mathurin was great. I think that they can win games with Benedict Mathurin, so they can still get to like that 11, so they don't have to give the Thunder like a really good pick. But also, I think that the protection that they got on the Pacers pick means that if they get lucky in the draft lottery, which it's very likely that they could still end up with a top 10 pick this year. And I think that is exactly what a team like them would want, knowing that they're not going to get their own pick because that's going to the Thunder. So I feel like they've given themselves the shot at starting their rebuild with one of those picks, and now they just have a funner team. Like they just have Darius Garland and Mathurin. I feel like could work really well. They could probably still have, and then they still have Kawhi Leonard, he's gonna win you some games by himself. So I think that I can see a lot more what they're trying to do because it makes more sense than trying to force, James Harden and Kawhi Leonard at their old ages to try and get you to the playoffs just so the Thunder don't get a valuable pick. Like it's just not realistic. Even though they were having that win streak, I don't see that team doing anything. And one injury would have wiped them off anyway. So now they've guaranteed that they can at least have an opportunity to get a pick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I mean, they had an amazing win streak going on. I think it was like 16-3, and maybe even more than that. But that's what I saw it at one point. But the ceiling of that team is very much so in question.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're gonna take that team in their old age. They've been healthier. They've had better rosters, and they've come up short consistently year after year since Kawhi got there. So I don't know. Again, this was never going to be the team that was going to break through, right? No matter how good they look this time of year, how many games they win in a short amount of time, it was had a ceiling to it, and this was supposed to be a lower ceiling than those teams as well. So I think that makes sense. As an average NBA fan, not happy. that the Thunder are going to get this pick probably, because this absolutely screwed up the winning that they were doing. I was really hoping that they would make the playoffs so this pick wouldn't go to Thunder or it wouldn't be as high. That probably won't happen now because they have Darius Garland. He hasn't played yet, but I just don't really see taking out Harden for Darius Garland and then continuing to win the way they've done. No offense to Darius Garland, great player, was an All-Star last year, two-time All-Star. Just into a new system, and they're winning already a ton. That may be a problem there. So as for the Pacers, though, I'm really excited for Zubac being on this Pacers team. I mean, what do you think that'll look like next year for playoff time?
I have no clue. I'm very interested to see what Rick Carlisle does. He's an amazing coach, but this having Zubac is very different than having Miles Turner. So I'd really like to see how the offense changes because usually Zubac is more when he's your center, you want a patient offense. Like the Clippers had a very patient offense, but the specifically Tyrese Halliburton and Rick Carlisle love to play fast. They love running for fast breaks. They love all of that. And Zubac isn't really that type of player. So I'm wondering how, if they change the offense at all, maybe they do. Maybe Zubac just stays back sometimes. He's slower. He just tries to get the board and throw it up. I'm not sure how they're going to do it yet, but I'm really interested to see because Miles Turner was running down that court. And I don't know if Zubac is going to be able to do the same and then maintain his defensive presence. He's probably not going to get many post touches, I'm expecting, with this Pacers team. Like, I'm interested to see how he's used because I know the Pacers were such a special team because of the way they play fast. And I'm interested to see if Zubac is able to do that because I know they wanted Walker Kessler originally, but the Jazz changed their mind and they wanted to keep him. So I feel Walker Kessler would have fit a little better than Zubac just because I feel like he's a little more athletic, but I can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah. I didn't realize Walker Kessler was on their board. I think they're more similar of a player than you're like saying that they are, just at least a little bit more. Like I think neither of them are very quick. They don't shoot a ton. Like it's not like a Miles in comparison to somebody like a Miles Turner that they had before.
Mm-hmm.
He is much closer, Walker Kessler is, to a Zubac than Miles Turner, you would say, right?
Yeah, I think he's quicker. I think he is quicker. I think he can play. The Jazz played pretty fast to me, and when they had Walker Kessler, so I felt
That's
like
true.
I've seen it kind of work. Whereas every team I've seen Zubac on, and that might just because Tyronn Lue plays slow, but he's
And
been
they're
playing slow.
old. You can't expect those guys to run up and down the court when their youngest guy was, Norman Powell at 33. What do you
Yeah.
expect them to do, That's all we had for the trade deadline. Just at least going over the deals. We'll bring up another episode pretty soon, just reacting to who didn't get traded, how that's supposed to look, winners and losers, stuff like that. But be sure to like and subscribe on the podcast, and hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you guys real soon.